Good morning, all. Today we will discuss about Flow Designer. So Flow Designer is one of the feature in Anypoint platform, and we can use this from Design Center to create the flows in Anypoint platform, and it will be used to create any simple and demo applications, and it will be quicker. So we don't need to install or download the Anypoint Studio. So whatever the activities that we can perform within the Anypoint Studio for simple applications and demo applications, we can develop them within the Flow Designer as well. So we can use the message processor to set the payloads or to set the loggers. And also we can call the external services as well. And today we will uh, consume the service that is employees API. And in this employees API, we are going to use HTTP requester. So I'm going to Anypoint Studio, and within Anypoint Studio, we have employees list response JSON as well as another one REST API employees list. So we are going to map these two JSONs as well, and we will try to set the metadata within the Flow Designer also. Log into Anypoint platform, and within Anypoint platform, you need to choose under which business group we wanted to create this designer application. And from the main menus, you can go to Design Center. And within Design Center, there is an option on the right side, Create New. So here, select Mule app. Provide an application like Employees Service API. So we are going to create a Mule application. It is loading, and here we can select the triggers. So whether it is like any scheduler we wanted to trigger the flow, or if we want to configure any HTTP listener, we can configure the HTTP listener as well. Here we can select what is the source point that can trigger the flow. I'm going straight to the canvas, and on the left side we have the project. Here we can create a flows, as many flows as needed, and also we can create any reusable configurations like connector configurations, which are global elements. And we can also define the data types to define the metadata. So I'm going to rename the flow as employees implementation. Here we are going to add an trigger point or a source point. Search for listener, HTTP listener, and then add a resource path. So by default, it will add an HTTP listener under the reusable configuration, and we can check that configuration. So here we have using Cloud Hub HTTP configuration. Click on edit. So this is the listener, and click on save. So we have an HTTP listener endpoint, which is having a resource /gmp, and then add a logger here. Within logger, provide a message, flow started. And we can even set the logging information level as well. So whatever that we can do within the Anypoint Studio, we can do it within the Flow Designer also. And add one more endpoint to consume the employee service, which is deployed on Cloud Hub. So add a HTTP request. And here we need to provide the configuration. So click on edit and name this service as REST employee service HTTP request underscore config. And here we need to provide any base path if it is having, And we can add the headers, query parameters, which are common for the entire configuration. Click on add connection, and here choose a connection name and connection type as request. So we have provided the connection name, and also the connection type is HTTP request, protocol HTTP, and we need to provide the host name. So this will be our host name. And we need to provide a port number as well. Click on save. And again click on save. Here we need to provide the path. So we need to provide either the URL or path of the resource we wanted to consume. Select employees and provide the path. And for this configuration, if we needed to send any of the headers or URL parameters, we can add the configurations here. And we are going to add metadata for this. So we are going to get a response from this, right? So you can add the metadata here. So what kind of response it will provide? For that, I'm going to Anypoint Studio and copy this employees test API employees list. Here we can provide the name test API MP list. Click on save. So whenever we are adding this output type here, it is going to create a data type in the data type section and close this. If we observe, we have created a flow and we have a flow name and with the file name as well. So our flow is employees IMP, and also the file name is employees IMP. And we have a reusable configuration. One is for HTTP listener and another one is for HTTP requester. Add one more component, transform. And in this transformation, we need to provide the input and output. And in our previous step configuration for the HTTP requester, since we have added the output metadata, that output metadata is coming as an input for the next component. And we are going to add a metadata or data type for the transformation output. So this will be our employee service employee list. We will add the example. We wanted to provide an output in this format. So click on save. And here we can add the mapping. So employee ID to employee number, name to EEP name, department to DEPT number, salary to salary. And click on the script here so that we can see the script that was auto-generated whenever we have done a graphical mapping. So we can switch between the sample data, mappings, and script. And if we wanted to add any of the expressions, we can choose the vertical dots and then click on set expression so that we can add the expressions here. Close. So as of now, we have 4 components and we will deploy this application. So since it is in our design center, whenever we wanted to deploy the service, EMP service API, it is going to deploy our applications into design box. And if we wanted to create a new flows, here, go to the flows and click on plus icon. So that we need to provide the trigger for that particular flow and we can configure the flow with message processors. So I'm going to straight canvas, and since it is having a new flow without any of the components, it will throw an error, but I'm going to delete this flow name. And remember, since it is a flow, we cannot add multiple flows within the same file name or flow names. And we can even edit the configurations. Go to this configure option to edit. So click on edit and we can add the connections here. So if we want to create new connections, you can provide the connection names and we can select the listener so that you can provide the host and port numbers here. So we are choosing the employees HTTP listener config and it is having configuration. So to edit the configuration, existing configuration, click on this horizontal dash and click edit. Here if you see, it is the listener type and it is having 00 host and port 8081. Click on save and again click on save. Now we have to deploy this application to test the service. So whenever we save the changes and by default, it is going to deploy the application within the design box. And here we can choose the runtime manager and we can check the application, whether it is deployed or not. And within runtime manager in the design environment, we can see that application is deployed. Whenever it is going to deploy the application into this environments, by default, it is going to add an extension or suffix so that it will make the application unique across the public domain. So now we will check for this application service. So go to logs. So we can verify these logs at two places. So first we will try to send a request. Since it is a GET service, we can directly send the request from browser also. So we will check from the Postman. We can also check it from the Postman. Send a request. We are having an issue. It is throwing HTTP gateway error. Okay. Since it is a HTTP request, we need to provide the protocol as HTTP and send one more request. And here we can observe that we are getting a response that is required from the employee service that we have exposed. Since we have mapped the details by using the transformation and metadata. And we will check the logs at two places. So within runtime manager, you can see that there is a flow started logger, and within the flow designer design center also, we can verify the logs. So on the lower right corner, we have a logs option and you can check that logs. And here, if you see, it is also having the logs. We can see the same logs in the flow designer, also in the runtime manager. Here we can see that option, clear logs and also VN runtime manager. And whenever an event is passed, so if there is any failure in any of these message process, so there won't be any tick mark on that particular component. Since all of the message processors are successfully processed, we can see a tick mark here. And if we wanted to check the history of the components, how it was executed, we can open that. And also here we can search for the details. So let me check input. And here we have the history. So at 10:11 a.m., we got the request and the response, and it is being sent to this format. So it is going to provide the history of that particular events as well. In this way, we can design our flows for a quick and internal testing purpose. So if we have any of the if we have configured any of the IP addresses within the allow list and we wanted to test a connection for that particular database or for that particular service. So we can do a quick demo application within the Flow Designer and we can deploy our application. So instead of downloading the Anypoint Studio and instead of building all the necessary things within the Anypoint Studio and uploading the application into Runtime Manager, we can quickly do that within the Flow Designer. And any of the team members that have the access, they can do the application development within the Flow Designer. Thank you.